In early 2026, President Trump directed the Pentagon and federal intelligence agencies to begin identifying and releasing government files related to unidentified aerial phenomena, UFOs, and extraterrestrial life. This was not a fringe request. This was a presidential executive directive. And as of right now, those files are not public. The agencies have not released them. The Pentagon has not released them. The intelligence community has not released them. The official explanation from the administration is that the process takes time. But that's not the full explanation, because in the gap between the president ordered this and it hasn't happened yet, there is a bureaucratic and institutional structure that has spent decades doing exactly one thing: keeping these files out of public hands. And that structure didn't disappear with an executive order. To understand what's happening right now, you need the history of every previous disclosure attempt, because the current situation isn't new. In 2017, the Pentagon was forced to acknowledge the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a UAP investigation unit they had denied for years. They acknowledged it only after the New York Times published the story. They said it had been shut down. It had not. In 2020, Congress passed legislation requiring the creation of a UAP reporting mechanism within the intelligence community. This was the first time Congress had mandated UAP transparency. The response: slow compliance, minimal actual disclosure. In 2021, the ODNI released the first formal UAP report. It covered 144 incidents. It explained one. In 2022, Congress passed a stronger mandate: the NDAA provision establishing the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, a permanent body with a specific mission to investigate UAP. In 2024, AARO published its first historical report. In that report, the agency acknowledged it had not been given access to all the files relevant to its investigation, a transparency agency saying it can't see everything. In 2025, Congress passed the UAP Disclosure Act, modeled on the JFK Records Act. It mandated release of all UAP-related government files within a specific time frame, with a review board to oversee the process. The review board has not been fully constituted. Now in 2026, the executive order. Every step in this timeline follows the same pattern: mandate, resistance, partial compliance, new mandate. Here's what we know about why the files haven't been released despite the executive order. Reason 1. Classification is distributed across agencies, and not all agencies answer to the president directly. The intelligence community has 18 agencies. Several of them, particularly the National Reconnaissance Office and the Defense Intelligence Agency, operate with significant independence from executive direction on matters classified as special access programs. A presidential directive to release files doesn't automatically override CIP classification protocols. This is documented in the UAP Disclosure Act's own language, which specifically creates a mechanism to override SAP protections, because Congress knew that normal declassification channels wouldn't be sufficient. Reason 2. The contractors. David Grusch testified under oath in 2023 that the most sensitive UAP programs are not run by the government directly. They're run by private contractors, specifically named Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division, among others, operating under contracts that place the work outside normal government oversight structures. If a UAP reverse engineering program is formally a private sector R&D contract, a presidential order to release government files may not legally compel the contractor to release anything. This is not speculation. This is the exact gap that the UAP Disclosure Act tried to close, and why the legislation created a review board with authority specifically over contractor-held materials. That review board hasn't been seated. Reason 3. The boring records problem, and whether it's real. Several mainstream experts, including some who worked at AARO, have publicly stated that the UAP files, if released, will mostly contain administrative records, flight logs, and incident reports that contain no extraordinary information. The prediction is that disclosure will be a nothing burger. This may be accurate for most of the files, but AARO's own director resigned, citing institutional obstruction. And congressional members who have received classified UAP briefings have, in multiple documented cases, exited those briefings visibly disturbed and gone on record saying the situation was beyond anything I expected. Senator Harry Reid, who helped fund the AATIP program, spent the last years of his life saying the public deserved to know what he knew. He died in 2021 without it being disclosed. The structural problem with UAP disclosure is this. The system that classified this information was specifically designed to resist exactly the kind of top-down declassification that an executive order represents. Special access programs exist to prevent political interference in sensitive operations. The same protection that prevents a hostile president from exposing legitimate intelligence sources also prevents a cooperative president from easily releasing information that the intelligence community doesn't want released. This is the bind that UAP researchers have been pointing to for years. It's also why the JFK Records Act, the model for the UAP Disclosure Act, took 60 years to result in meaningful release and still hasn't resulted in complete release. The JFK Act was signed in 1992. It set a 25-year deadline for full release. That deadline was missed. Files are still being held. If the UAP Disclosure Act follows the same trajectory, the files that would answer the most important questions won't be released in any of our lifetimes, absent a fundamentally different mechanism of enforcement. What would that look like? Congressional oversight with actual subpoena power. A review board with clearances high enough to access SAP materials. Whistleblower protections strong enough to protect people who speak. Two of those three things were included in the UAP Disclosure Act. The review board hasn't been seated. Here's where we are in March 2026. The president has ordered disclosure. Congress has passed legislation mandating it. A permanent investigation office exists. Multiple credentialed witnesses have testified under oath, and the files are not public. The most optimistic interpretation is that the process is slow, the bureaucracy is resistant, and meaningful disclosure will come in 6 to 18 months. The least optimistic interpretation is that the same institutional structure that has blocked disclosure for 80 years is doing exactly what it was built to do, and that executive orders, disclosure acts, and oversight committees are being managed at a pace that ensures nothing consequential is released before the window of political will closes. History supports the less optimistic interpretation, but history also shows that the window has never been this wide. The combination of congressional mandate, executive order, and public awareness is unlike anything that has existed before. Whether that's enough to break through, we'll find out in real time. We'll be tracking every release. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes out. We're monitoring the release timeline closely, and we'll break down everything that comes out as soon as it does. Subscribe. Ring the bell. This story is moving. Drop in the comments. Do you think meaningful disclosure happens in 2026? What would meaningful even look like to you?